Look at the northern coast of Africa, and you'll find two tiny pieces of Spanish soil completely surrounded by Morocco. These are the cities of Ceuta and Melilla. Because they represent the only physical land borders connecting the African continent directly to the European Union, they're heavily fortified flashpoints. Ceuta in particular is remarkably small. It covers a mere 7.7 square miles and houses a normal population of around 84,000 residents. That extreme density and geographic isolation turns the enclaves into a pressure cooker. The entire territory relies entirely on strict, uninterrupted border enforcement just to maintain basic civil order. But that order recently collapsed overnight. In a single 24-hour window, an estimated 49,000 to 60,000 people surged across the border into Ceuta. The local infrastructure instantly buckled. Spain was forced to deploy its military to back up local Guardia Civil officers, who found themselves completely overrun by the sheer volume of arrivals. What made this surge highly unusual was how it happened. This was not a slow buildup of desperate people. Footage and reports from the ground showed Moroccan border forces actively standing aside, waving crowds through, and in some cases guiding them directly to the Spanish perimeter. A breach of this speed and coordination points away from a standard humanitarian situation. We are looking at a deliberate, structural collapse of enforcement that requires a closer look at what exactly triggered it. The groundwork for this influx was actually laid across the Mediterranean in Madrid. Recent domestic policy changes in Spain drastically lowered the legal risks of crossing the border, while significantly raising the potential rewards. The first major catalyst was an amnesty program championed by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. By offering legal status to roughly 1 million undocumented migrants already in the country, Spain created an immediate, powerful incentive to reach its territory by any means necessary. Adding to that pull was a recent Spanish Supreme Court ruling. The decision severely restricted the ability of border guards to immediately return individuals who had just visibly crossed the fence from Morocco, tying up deportations in lengthy administrative delays. By virtually eliminating the threat of swift importation and dangling the prospect of eventual amnesty, Spain inadvertently broadcast an open-door invitation across North Africa. But an invitation alone doesn't organize up to 60,000 people to rush a fence on a specific Tuesday. Western intelligence services claim this massive surge was a coordinated operation deliberately executed by the Moroccan government. In geopolitical terms, this is known as hybrid warfare, or weaponized migration, where a state intentionally funnels mass human movement across a border to punish a neighboring country, sow political chaos, or force diplomatic concessions. Spain laid out a perfect set of legal incentives, and a foreign state capitalized on it, executing a perfectly timed push to test the limits of European border security. This map highlights the true vulnerability for the European Union. It shows Ceuta connecting to mainland Spain and the wider Schengen zone as a unified bloc. Anyone moved to the Spanish mainland is legally inside this free travel zone, moving unimpeded into France and Germany. Once those individuals hit the mainland, physical border checkpoints effectively vanish, and internal containment becomes nearly impossible. That means a localized border collapse in a 7-square-mile African enclave instantly becomes a systemic security threat for the entire European continent. The political fallout has been immediate. European leaders like Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni have threatened to suspend Italy's open border arrangements with Spain to shield their own nations from the downstream effects. This anxiety is echoing across the continent. Eastern nations like Poland are rapidly erecting physical barriers of steel and razor wire, preemptively hardening their own frontiers against identical hybrid warfare tactics. Even nations outside the Schengen zone, like the UK, are watching closely as they combat their own uncontrollable waves of maritime crossings, driven by the same transnational smuggling networks. The current international framework, specifically the 1951 Refugee Convention, was built to protect individuals fleeing the ashes of the Second World War. It was never designed to process tens of thousands of people moving simultaneously as a geopolitical weapon wielded by a hostile state. The crisis in Ceuta lays bare a stark reality. A borderless Europe is only as strong as its outermost perimeter. Until international asylum laws adapt to the modern strategy of weaponized migration, the entire system remains just one orchestrated surge away from total collapse.